Okay, give me 1 second, everybody. Alrighty. Give me 1 second, everybody. Just want to make sure that we're chilling here. I'm probably going to put on, I think there's a basketball game on for the Olympics in a little bit. Um, but we'll kind of restart the stream, just the way that the stuff was. So, what is going on, everybody? This is, of course, your boy Bernie here on The Charge, giving the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. First off, I want to say thank you once again to everybody that tuned into the live stream. I think at one point we had at least 200 plus people here in the live chat, or sorry, in the live stream, just kind of hanging out, chilling. We had a lot of people active in the chat, and I do appreciate each and every one of you for spending. If you spend at least an hour or however much time you spent on the stream, because we did go for 7 hours, me and my boy Pete. And I also want to shout out Pete and Tyrese for coming onto the stream yesterday to kind of talk some NBA news and rumors. Especially my boy Pete. I know that he's busy with his job. He could do anything in the world. We're not getting paid at all. And that's kind of the reason why, if you see in the screen, I have a goal set for us for 1,000 subscribers by the end of basically the year. I want to do it around Christmas. I think that this channel has done a really good job. Me and my boy Pete, we started this channel together. It used to be called Fusion Corp. Talked a lot of different stuff. Talked Dragon Ball. Talked Naruto. Talked like a lot of different stuff on this channel. But I think the thing that we both love the most is basketball. And I think that the way that it's set up, I think it's going to be a beautiful thing to talk of basketball. Because, like I said, it's a thing that brought me and my boy Pete together all the way back since, I would say, elementary school, which is where we kind of grew our friendship. So, Pete, if you're watching, thanks once again for kind of tuning in and kind of also helping out with the channel, man. It's a blast doing this with you. And I hope that we can do this again sometime soon, whether on the whatchamacallit, whether here in the live stream or on Discord or in person. I do appreciate you kind of helping the channel out, and, giving me insight as someone that was a former streamer. I thought, my boy Pete, not to go full man crush on him right now, but I think he's a really good streamer. He had a great kind of run at it, and I really think that he should have continued it because he's really freaking good. But nevertheless, we're here to talk some Fusion Core, The Charge, now as it's known. But before we do, guys, I do want to say that there is merchandise if you are interested in the channel and mess with it. We have, of course, T-shirts, we have mugs, we have hats. And it's just, if you really mess with the channel, if you want to support the charge and everything that we do here, there's, of course, merchandise to buy. And, of course, we have a donation link as well if you are interested in donating to the channel because, this channel, we're trying to, get enough money to get equipment for this channel. I want to buy some things to kind of help out the channel, make it more, I would say, friendlier to watch, more aesthetically pleasing at times. I know that this is kind of basic at times, but I do appreciate you guys kind of messing with the channel. And the most important thing for me, guys, is this goal that we have down here. To me, this goal kind of over here, I'm not sure if my mouse is kind of clicking on it or not. But I do want to say like that this to me is kind of the biggest thing I want to see for us, is the goal to 1,000 subscribers. Like I said, we really want to push this to 1,000 subscribers. We want to get to by the end of Christmas, because it gets us in the partnership program. It gets us to actually make money off these videos. Whether the 5 cents that it is, I don't really care at this point. It's just a goal that I want to strive and achieve for. So if you do mess with the channel, if you mess with us, my boy Pete, Tyrese as well, shout out to him when he ever gets on. I know we were supposed to get on today, but I had to deal with some technical issues today, pertaining honestly to my headphones. I had a really tough time being able to hear the sound, and it just took like a bunch of hours and manpower just to get it. But again, that's nothing to really talk about. We're here to talk about the NBA news and rumors and basketball opinions. And like I said before we do, if you guys are interested in donating or the merch, it's there for you if you are interested in doing that for us. But nevertheless, we are here to talk about basketball, and that's really the biggest thing that I want to talk about today. Really talking about the biggest winners and losers in today's draft. The biggest thing that we can kind of talk about yesterday's draft that it really didn't go so out of order until the fourth pick, I would say. Even the fourth pick, you could argue with that one. But really, it started, honestly, with the Oklahoma City Thunder at number 6. But before we talk about that, I want to say that all three teams, the Cavs, the Rockets, and the Detroit Pistons were my biggest winners yesterday, or one of the winners in yesterday's draft. They got the guys that they wanted. Those are the guys that they're going to build around. And, especially the Rockets, which we'll get to a little bit later as we kind of go over their picks. I thought that they did an excellent job in today's draft, or yesterday's draft, really getting the guys that they want. There were guys that a lot of other teams really should have gotten, but the Rockets did their due diligence, and they actually got the guy that they want. Just quickly, I really thought that the Orlando Magic actually did a pretty good job of getting a talented player. Jalen Suggs falling to number 5, if you can really call it falling, was a huge pickup for them. When you have an elite talented point guard like he is, that is able to read the floor with his quarterback vision and able to do a lot of things that I would honestly say a lot of their guards right now can't really do. It's really a blessing for them to have a guy like that. The Orlando Magic seem to always be outside of getting one of these top prospects. They haven't really gotten someone like that, honestly, I would say, since Shaquille O'Neal when they drafted in the 90s. Other than that, the Orlando Magic are still in this sort of rebuild mode. They always seem to not get in the top 2 to get the guy that they want. But they honestly got a great player in Jalen Suggs. Like I said, I think he's going to be a great player in this league. I think him and Green could potentially be, specifically, especially Jalen Suggs. I think he could be one of the best point guards in the league with the way that he plays the game. So hard, so physical, but also athletic as well, which is definitely what you need in this NBA. It's just that athleticism, and he brings it. A lot of their other guards, like you could say Cole Anthony, I think he's a great backup guard for them. You also have Markelle Fultz. A lot of people predicted him to be, or he was the number 1 pick for Philly a couple years back. I wasn't too convinced with him, but it is what it is at this point. And I just think that, to me, it just didn't make any sense in that aspect as well. But you do have to take the best available player in Jalen Suggs and kind of fill in, I would say, a need, which is a star player, which I think Jalen Suggs can be. Can he be a number 1? I'm not so sure about a number 1, but I think he can definitely be a guy that can be a starting point guard on a championship-winning team. His intangibles are special, and I know that my boy Sean, who is also the intern for us at The Charge, kind of the Twitter troll, or Twitter, kind of the home of Twitter for us, he kind of talks about him and a lot of the Gonzaga alums. But as I was talking before in the earlier video, before I kind of redid the stream, I honestly thought my biggest losers were honestly the Oklahoma City Thunder. Really thinking about it more and more after me and my boy Pete streamed yesterday. If you are interested, go and check out that 7-hour stream. I really think that they're the biggest losers here. The reason why I think that they are the biggest losers, in my opinion, is because when I really look at a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are they trying to build around right now? There's no one really that they're trying to get. They traded a lot of their picks away. They traded the Sagoon pick to the Houston Rockets to get 2 more picks. It seems like they're just acquiring assets without really doing their due diligence of, to be honest with you, they're not really doing anything. It just seems like they're just kind of staying here until they finally get that number 1 pick. I mean, if their goal is to get every single first-round pick for the next 2 to 3 years so they can potentially get the number 1 pick, this, to me, what they're doing right now is the Boston Celtics, but on steroids. Because they're just trading away assets. They got another first-round pick from the Utah Jazz for taking on the Derek Favors contract. At some point, like I said, they're going to have to start picking some of these players. They're going to have to start trading away some of these assets because there's no way that they're going to be able to afford all of these players. And what are they doing with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? He was on the trade rumors. They were offering him up. But is that a guy that you give up on? Like, is that a guy? Do you think that Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is a number one guy, or do you think he's a number two? That is what I kind of want to know from the Oklahoma City Thunder, because it seems like the way that everything's being played out, it seems like he's really turning into like a number two guy, or even a guy that they trade or is expendable. Because if you really think about it, right now he's 22 years old. You just drafted Josh Giddey, who's a very, I would say, raw player in terms of there's a lot of stuff that he needs to get in his game. And do you think that he can get there by 2 or 3 years? Maybe if he was like a well-polished player at this point, you could say, well, let's see what he can do with Josh Giddey. But at this point, it's like you don't know what you're going to get from Josh Giddey. You could potentially get that guy, but it's going to take 5 or 6 years, in my opinion. It's definitely going to take a lot longer. And so the biggest takeaway for me is that I think they are one of my biggest losers. Again, trading away picks that they really need, not really doing their due diligence, like I said, of getting someone that they could use for the future. It seems like they're just trying to they're just trying to get the assets so they can get that guy in the future. And like I showed in our mock drafts that we were talking about earlier, you got Chet Holmgren, you got Paulo Blanchero as the number one and number two. Even Jaden Hardy at this point, we'll kind of see how he does in the Ignite League. And it's like, to me, what are you doing with those guys? Like, is it someone that you're keeping? Is it someone that you're not keeping? In terms of, like, what are you doing with those draft picks? I would love for them to trade away some of those draft picks to get somebody. But again, they're just betting on whether or not they're going to get some of these guys. Like I said, either a Paulo Blanchero, a Chet Holmgren, and even if we go to the 23 mock draft, you got guys like Jalen Duran, Amani Bates, Victor Wembanyama, who I really like, and I think that teams should be looking at this guy in the next coming years. Honestly, the Kristaps comparison I think is a little off. Excuse me. And like I said, I would honestly take Victor Wembanyama over some of these guys. Well, it's honestly a toss-up now, really thinking about that draft with Amani Bates and Victor. So we'll see what goes on in that draft. But to go back to the kind of NBA draft that we saw yesterday, like I said, the Thunder, not really convinced that they won the draft. I honestly think that they lost the draft. And so we'll see what happens with their future and who they are going to decide to get in the near future. But nevertheless, my biggest takeaway is just we'll see what happens. Now, another thing that we can kind of talk about, of course, I think the Warriors are also biggest losers as well. We kind of talked about this before with a guy like Jonathan Kuminga. Well, really with the 17th and 14th pick. When we look at those picks, we were expecting them to make sort of I would say, a big move. They were supposed to trade away some stuff. They're supposed to do a lot of different things with this draft pick, and unfortunately, they went in a totally different direction. They decided to go and get Jonathan Kuminga. Again, I like Jonathan Kuminga. I think he could be potentially special, depending on how the Warriors are going to build around him. I honestly think he could be a Draymond type of player, and he can fit that system really well. But with a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do with him. Do they keep him? Do they trade him? But I thought, for the Warriors, for a team that's really trying to win now, drafting two guys, even though I do love Moses Moody, I think he's probably got one of the biggest upside as a point guard besides, obviously the top two. I think he's honestly the third best point guard in this draft. I know Davion Mitchell's there, but the idea of Moses Moody being there in Golden State, I think he actually does fit that team very well as someone that could potentially replace Clay as kind of that defender, but can also shoot the rock as well. But again, I do have them as my biggest losers because I really thought they were going to do something with those picks and Wiseman maybe, or potentially Andrew Wiggins, and try and do something to get themselves in championship contending mode. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, it's going to be one of those situations you look at it and you're going to see whether or not they're able to maybe create an atmosphere or create an environment to where they can get themselves in a better situation for the near future. Honestly, the Orlando Magic are also a winner for me as well. You got a guy in Jalen Suggs who I'm not sure if I talked about him, but I'm pretty sure I did. You also got Franz Wagner, a guy that a lot of teams were coveting and looking at as someone that could potentially help their team win a championship, or really more so be a nice role player, starting type of guy. The ability to stretch the floor, the ability to shoot the rock. I think he has tremendous upside. I think this is the first time where Orlando Magic didn't really F up a draft. I was in the camp of I thought Mo Bamba was going to be a good player, give him time and potential, but I'm obviously wrong on that, and I'll own it. But I think Franz Wagner could be a great could be a great pickup for them. I think getting Jalen Suggs and Franz, I think was a great thing for them, and I really give them a solid grade, maybe a B to a B plus. Honestly, a B plus, because you do draft a guy in Jalen Suggs, who I think really the Toronto Raptors should have taken as kind of the next heir apparent to Kyle Lowry. But they have Fred VanVleet, so maybe they're looking at him as kind of transitioning to that point guard role, and letting Kyle Lowry kind of, let him decide what team. The Dallas Mavericks I've seen are interested in his services, and we'll see if that's kind of a guy that they're going to take in the near future. But again, going to number 9, another team that just continuously doesn't draft correctly, and I have to give my biggest losers, or one of them, to the Sacramento Kings once again. I talked about this with the Marvin Bagley deal, or the Marvin Bagley draft. I didn't think he was a great fit for them. I thought that, he kind of played like Jahlil Okafor. You don't really know what you're getting. But taking Davion Mitchell when I think that they didn't need a point guard. You already have De'Aaron Fox. You already have Tyrese Halliburton. My question is, why would you take a guy in Davion Mitchell who really, to me, is a backup guard for them? Not someone that I would honestly have on the court. They did draft a guy from Michigan last year that I liked. I think his name is Guy, if I'm not mistaken. I thought that he would be a great backup point guard for those two guys. So to me, it's like, are you going to play all three of those? Because I thought that they could have gotten a guy like Zaire Williamson if they really wanted to reach, or a guy like James Bouknight, who I thought, could potentially be a better fit in that aspect, where if he's more of a shooting guard, more, you can maybe play those three guys together. But really, I would have taken Zaire at this point. Or if you feel like, you can take a chance, maybe you take Alfred Sengun. I mean, that's another guy I probably would have looked at for the Sacramento Kings. And to me, it's like you take a guy, Davion Mitchell. I know that he has the pedigree. I know he kind of gives me that Kemba Walker vibe, where like he's going to be a really good player in this league. I don't doubt that. My question is, I think it's a bad fit for the team and him to really get that playing time that I think he needs to grow and develop to be a Kemba Walker-esque type of player for them in Sacramento. Like I said, unless the idea is that you're getting rid of De'Aaron Fox. Tyrese Halliburton got drafted and is going to stay there. But like the idea that maybe De'Aaron Fox is going to leave, I think maybe that's what's scaring them. And so I think, in my humble opinion, I really think that the Davion Mitchell pick was a bad move. And it just feels like the Sacramento Kings are going to Sacramento Kings and just not get a guy that really fits what they need. Marvin Bagley is going to be gone, I think. I don't think he's going to re-sign in Sacramento. I don't even think Sacramento wants him at this point. And just kind of restart just with the beef with De'Aaron Fox and Marvin Bagley. Unless you feel like Marvin Bagley is the guy you're going to build around, I don't think so. But you could look at him in that aspect. And so, again, they're one of my biggest losers. At number 10, this is where the Memphis Grizzlies actually take this pick in that Valanciunas trade. I think it's not a bad pickup. I honestly think that getting a guy in Zaire Williams could potentially be a great fit for them. The question is, did he get taken too high? And that's always going to be people's, I would say, biggest gripe is, could they have gotten this guy later in the draft? Could they have waited, gotten their pick? To be honest with you, maybe the Spurs would have taken him, but we'll talk about the Spurs in a second. I just really thought that the Memphis Grizzlies, I think they did a good job. They took Zaire. I really like his game. I think he's going to be a great player. The question is, what is his future? Like, is he going to be a guy that you could look on and say, he's going to give me like at least 17 to 18 points per game? Does he replace Kyle Anderson? That's kind of the biggest question mark, I would say, as we're kind of looking at the whole situation at hand. But we'll see what happens. And that's going to be the biggest thing that we're going to talk about later on in the draft and see, kind of what Memphis is going to do there. And maybe we'll get my boy Sean, who is a former Memphis fan. And also shout out to Sean too. He's our Twitter our Twitter guy. Does a great job on the Twitter sphere, so I do appreciate him as well for doing that. Again, no one's getting paid from me to do it, so I just want to give a huge shout out to those guys who really make this thing work for us here on the Charge. But nevertheless, I do want to get his opinion on this Zaire Williamson. As a former Grizzly fan, he was a huge Brandon Clark fan, and they just kind of shafted him, and that's the reason why he's kind of turned away from them and shied away from staying a Memphis Grizzlies fan. It looks like he's going to go to the Washington Wizards, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Number 11, James Bouknight. I thought it was a great pickup. I think the Hornets did a great job. They got a couple of guys that I like. I think him and also JT Thor as a project for LaMelo Ball to kind of help and kind of develop him along with those guys. I thought that was a great pickup for them. They're a little heavy at the guard side, so I'm wondering if they're going to try and trade away those guys or try and see if maybe they get rid of Terry Rozier or PJ Washington or even Graham and see what they're going to do because they're really guard heavy at this point. And getting a guy like Bouknight, you're not getting any less guards at that point. So we'll see what happens with those guys. I'm curious to know what you guys think of LaMelo Ball and Bouknight teaming up together. I think it's a great pairing. The question is going to be, what's the ceiling for a guy like Bouknight? Is he going to be a guy that should have been taken in the lottery? We're going to look years back and say, man, that guy really should have gotten taken in the lottery. Or we're going to look at it and say, like, there was a reason why he fell. So again, let me know in the comment section down below or in the live chat if you're live with me right now what you guys think of that whole situation. We're going to have to move on to number 12, though, because I think this, to me, I look at this pick, and I think everybody that does one of these biggest winners and losers is going to have the San Antonio Spurs in here. Because, to be honest with you, Joshua Primo, you could have gotten so later in the first round. You can honestly gotten him in the late 20s if you wanted to trade back and maybe get some assets for that 12th pick. Because I think Joshua Primo, he's a great player. I mean, his shooting is kind of what's kind of keeping him alive in terms of an intriguing prospect to kind of build and nurture and see. But the problem is they already have DeJounte Murray. They have Kobe White, who they just signed. What are they doing at the guard position? Let's look at the strengths of a guy like Joshua Primo, the youngest prospect in the draft, younger than most high school seniors projected as and one and done candidates, good size, fluid athlete. But again, lacks strength and experience defensively. Not very efficient on offense right now. Likely is not ready to play at the NBA early in his career. And to me, it's if that's the case, why would you take a guy in Joshua Primo who honestly is not one of the top ranked players in this draft in terms of as the 12th best guy? Yes, you could look at it as maybe it's a Becky Hammon future pick where Becky Hammon kind of nurtures Joshua Primo into being that next guard for her, and just to kind of take over the Pop regime when he retires. I think it's going to come sooner rather than later. So maybe this was I would say a Spurs pick for Becky Hammon if she does decide to take the job, or if they even offer it to her, depending on the whole situation with that. But again, I think that's where it's going, and that's where I kind of lean towards. But again, a guy that I don't really think they necessarily needed. I thought they could have gotten him at any point in the draft. And to take him at number 12, I think is one of the biggest reaches in the draft. And it just kind of just says we're just trying to get a guy with intriguing prospect and see if we can't develop him and maybe get him to become our next future point guard in the NBA a couple years later down the line. We'll move on to kind of 13. I don't want to recap the whole draft, but I thought this was another L. The Pacers are kind of in this purgatory where it's they got Chris Duarte, and my boy Pete brought up an excellent point in yesterday's stream. Go and check it out if you haven't. He brought up the point that Rick Carlisle doesn't like young players. He really despises them. Not really despises them as he hates them, but he just hates the idea of growing and developing these young players to play up to a certain speed or play up to a certain strength. I think he wants already ready-made players, and I think that's the reason why Chris Duarte was taken so high. But I honestly thought here is where Moses Moody should have gone. I wasn't a big fan of this Chris Duarte pick. I think Duarte, I believe that the Knicks were interested in him. Seems like a Tom Thibodeau guy to me. And I think that's the reason why they kind of had to pick him at 13, because I think they could have gone him honestly so much later in the draft if they traded down, but they're afraid that that the Knicks are going to take him. So I think that's kind of the way that I think this sort of went. Again, another loser for me. Honestly, it's the Pelicans. I thought the Pelicans getting Trey Mann, doing that exchange, to get the Jonas Valanciunas trade. What value does a guy like Trey Murphy is okay? I think he's going to be an okay player, but when you have a chance to try and make Zion Williamson happy, I just don't think that this pick is going to make Zion happy. You're taking another guard after you just took one last year, and then again you're going to you already have they did have Eric Bledsoe. To me it's just like you're already taking so many of these players. It's like there's no need to take another one, in my opinion. I thought they could have done a much better job in that aspect. So we'll see what happens there. Again, not really a big fan of it. I think another loser I have to talk about, as much as I kind of hyped them up for taking Quentin Grimes later in the draft, I was really disappointed in the New York Knicks. I thought they could have done a much better job. There were some prospects out there that they could have gotten. I think a guy that they could have gotten maybe was Daron Sharp, to see if maybe you trade away Mitchell Robinson, Cameron Thomas, another guy that they maybe should have taken, or even Bone Highland from VCU, or even Josh Christopher. There's a lot of guys that they could have taken, but instead of taking the guys that they really should have, they kind of just kept trading back and trying to acquire assets. But I will say I do like the Quentin Grimes pickup. I think he's a great player. I think that when I watched his scrimmages on YouTube and just kind of rewatching it full, I liked what I saw from him. He was a guy that stood out in those scrimmages, and I thought that they did a good job of getting him and seeing what they could do with him for the future. As someone that is, I would say, more of a shooting guard than a point guard, kind of maybe see if maybe you'd step off the gas a little bit with Derrick Rose and kind of get this guy going. I think that's maybe something that you could look at, especially the team up with quickly, and to kind of have this team be ready for the future in terms of, if they do keep Julius Randle, maybe that's a good fit for them. And I think my biggest winners have to, of course, be the Houston Rockets. I thought that they did a great job. Like I said, they got Garuba, they got Josh Christopher, they got Sagoon, and then, of course, they got their guy in Jalen Green. To me, I think that those were great pickups for them. It's just crazy to me at this point, like why, they were allowed to take so many of those guys. I feel like they have a nice young core, similar to what Oklahoma City had a couple years back with obviously Durant, Harden, and KD. I'm not saying that those guys will be on those levels or win MVPs, but I will say that it's kind of an exciting time because they do have these young prospects and maybe see what they can get from these guys. Whether it is the hustle play of Garuba, more of the interior big, whereas Sagoon, is more of your stretch guy. And then, of course, you get Josh Christopher, my steal of the draft. I thought, going to the Houston Rockets, Josh Christopher is going to light it up. He kind of reminds me of Lou Will, Jamal Crawford, kind of that sixth man that can honestly come off the bench and get you 20 to 30 points, just, on sheer scoring ability. This is a shot creator that I think a lot of teams are looking for. And it's just crazy to me that teams were really not looking at him earlier in the draft. But again, it is what it is at this point. We'll see what happens there. I honestly think that the Nets actually came out as one of the winners as well. They got Cameron Thomas, they got Daron Sharp, and I think adding those two guys, especially Sharp as a rebounder, as a guy that really could help them on the boards, that is someone that you need on the team, especially with Kyrie and James Harden not really going to get the rebounds unless it's basically in their hands, where I feel like Sharp is going to go and chase those down. And same thing with Durant. Durant's, it's going to come to him. He's not going to go get the rebound. And at least in my opinion, maybe he can prove me wrong. But again, I just don't see it from him. It's okay. Not everybody's a rebounder. That's not everybody's role. And maybe some people are, like I said, they're more focused on the offense or the defense. Everyone has their specialty. And those, of course, are not those guys' specialty. I thought the Utah Jazz did okay. They got their guard. They got Butler, which I think is a great pickup for them, especially, depending if they do sign Mike Conley or not. I think Butler could really slot in there. It kind of fit right into the system, with Jordan Clarkson as the sixth man. And I think they did a great job in that aspect, in my opinion. Like I said, we'll see what happens with the Utah Jazz in that free agency. Are they going to get Mike Conley? Are they not? The only reason I brought them up is because I saw them at number 30. And then in kind of in round two, kind of the same story, same old song and dance. I thought the Sacramento Kings, for as bad as they took Davion Mitchell, I thought that getting Neemias Queta was a great pickup for them. This guy, I think, will be a steal of the draft as well with the way that he kind of rebounds, hustles. Again, another guy that stood out in the scrimmage for me. And I think you could definitely see him kind of develop and grow into someone that you could look at and say, that guy is going to be someone special in the league in the next couple of years. With the way that he's able to hustle, take some stuff, and really do a lot of things, the little things, I should say, that a lot of teams really need at this point. I think one of my biggest losers, I think the Boston Celtics kind of come away with that as well. Boston Celtics, they got Jonathan Bergen from Guadalupe. Again, more of a prospect, a guy that's not really going to come over until his contract is done. So we'll see if he kind of develops into anything. I'm not holding my breath for a guy like him, just because I know that when it comes to prospects of international or even just, with the way that our progression has worked, I just don't see it happening for the Boston Celtics. And I think that they're going to have to look into free agency and see if they can't get somebody, because they're definitely going to need somebody to help them get over this sort of stigma around Boston at this point, where it feels like they just can't do anything right. And I think my two biggest losers in terms of players, just because of where they got picked, I'd have to say Brandon Boston Jr. To me, like, this one is unfortunately a disappointing pick. Facts. Celtics stay making me mad with the draft picks and they haven't hit on first rounder since Tatum. Yeah, it's one of those things that you look at it. Oops, I want that there. And you're right. They haven't hit since Tatum. And the reason why it's frustrating is because I thought, like the Oklahoma City Thunder are at this point in their sort of crossroads, is that I really thought that they could have used those draft picks to get some guys and really, help us get some of the players, like whether it was Anthony Davis, whether it was some of these other guys that we were into, they just didn't do it. And now we're kind of stuck in here where we're taking guys like Guadalupe, guys from Guadalupe, Brandon Boston, Victor Messier, Canyon Chris, really hope him already. I think he'll be fine. I think Brandon Boston just had a terrible season at Kentucky. He was really inefficient, didn't really play to the best of his ability, and I just think that he really kind of fell apart at times, where I thought that he could have done a great job of I thought he could have done a better job there. And, I think everybody that really went to Kentucky this year, guys like Ashku, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Johnny Buckets, Johnny Mazang from UCLA transferred from Kentucky. I think Kentucky's starting to I think Calipari is starting to rub people a little bit the wrong way with the way that he's coaching and his kind of style of basketball. Yes, they can always get the top recruits, but it doesn't look like they have anybody in the next coming draft. I mean, let's look at the 2022 draft. No one really going to Kentucky besides Damian Collins as a power forward. They don't really have much guys in, I would say, the top anymore. They used to have it used to be like Duke and Kentucky, like those two were unanimously, but now it's moving and honestly it's shifting towards Gonzaga. And Duke is kind of still staying the powerhouse, so be curious to see what happens. Ty Washington, I haven't really watched a lot of him, Tar Heel Nation, I'll be honest with you. I haven't watched too much of his game. Maybe I'll look up some highlights right now, just to kind of look at it. Or after I'll talk about my two biggest losers first, and I'll talk about it. But again, like I said, Kentucky is still, just looking to somehow fill the void. I think Calipari is going to retire soon if they can't get top prospects anymore, which I think he should have already by now. Like I said, it didn't make any sense to me, and we'll see what happens. Like I said, not really a big fan of Kentucky at this point with the way that they're just kind of pushing out players. It seems like no one's really staying at Kentucky. And again, maybe that could be the reason why Brandon Boston Jr. didn't have a great season. The weaknesses of obviously, kind of reminds me of a guy like Brandon Ingram, where it's like he's a small guy, needs to put on some weight, needs to put on some pounds. And it's, I still think that as a ball handler, as ESPN kind of very astutely pointed out, I think he could do a better job of just, finishing and just shooting percentage wise. I just don't think that he is someone that really did a good job this year. But what you can say about a guy like Brandon Boston Jr. at this point is, there's a lot of upside with him, and I think taking him in the second round isn't too bad. If I was Brandon Boston Jr., I honestly would have looked to see if I could stay another year and go to a different college, or honestly see if you can't go to the G League and kind of get your name out there, because I think he could have made himself a little bit more money. Another guy that kind of was my biggest loser, but I think he went to a pretty decent team, is Sharif Cooper. And I think there's a lot of things to talk about Sharif Cooper for. The jumper obviously isn't the prettiest, but the scoring ability that he has makes him an intriguing prospect. And it's crazy as a guy that was, in the top 17, top 10, or at one point, the number 3 position ranked point guard. The fact that he fell all the way into the second round is ridiculous, and it makes you wonder, like, what type of stuff are people hearing? I think it's a lot more than just basketball, in my opinion. Whether or not that is a fair assessment or a fair, I would say, kind of criticism. You could say that it's not, but there had to be something, or there had to be a reason why he just didn't really last very long. Like, it didn't make any sense to me to why he fell all the way down to the second round and didn't really get himself going. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, those are kind of my biggest losers. And really, I want to make this more of a video more than a live stream. But I think those are kind of my biggest winners and losers at this point. I think I talked a lot more about the losers. My winners, of course, like I said, are the Houston Rockets. I thought they did a great job. They got the guys that they wanted and have a lot of very young prospects that they can really do a good job. I think they're my biggest winners and my only real, I would say the only winners that I would even consider. She posts videos of him hanging out in the hood when he was in high school. He's always keeping bad company, sadly. And that's the thing, as much as I would love to kind of, to me, I'm hoping that Sharif Cooper, you always want to surround yourself with guys, and, obviously I'm just taking your word for it, Tar Heel Nation, with it. I think that, for a guy like Sharif, I'm hoping that he can kind of surround himself with guys that want to see him succeed and want to see him do really well in the league. It's really a thankless job kind of being that guy to kind of help your teammate out, to kind of be the person that says, hey, you know what, maybe you shouldn't be, hanging around these guys. Maybe we should be in the gym working on your game, or, trying to get that jumper right. Or, maybe you don't need the jumper, but we at least need to fix the shot so you look like you can be someone out there that could potentially be a special player for the Atlanta Hawks. I'm not sure where Sharif Cooper is from. I'm not sure if he is from the Atlanta area. Auburn, I think it's like 20 minutes away, if I'm not mistaken. That's kind of something we have to look at and kind of monitor the situation with him. I want to see him succeed, man. I think that I want to see it here. Same problem with Dior Johnson. He used to post up in Kingston, New York. Hate to see young generational go down with the Josh Jackson path. Yeah, you just don't want to see it, man. You want to see these guys succeed. You want to see these guys think about, my thing with these guys also is, you worked your butt off at this point to get to where you're at. Drafted in the league, getting millions of dollars. Not saying you have to millions of dollars, all this stuff, but to work your butt off to get out of the situation that you're in, to get, to put yourself and whether your friends or family in a better financial situation. I think it's hard to argue, that they need to do a better job of surrounding themselves with guys that want to see them stay in the league. Because I think, you want to be the guy that goes back. To me, here's what I want to see. I want to see Sharif Cooper succeed in this league. Because, stories like him and, many other guys in this league is, helping out your community, going back to the community that you came from and giving them the resources so that people don't have to do some of the things that we're seeing out here. They don't have to do, you know, all this, unnecessary BS that people have to do at times. I know that may be a little harsh, but what I mean by that is like the drug dealing and the gang violence and just kind of that stuff. And that's the reason why I want to see Sharif Cooper succeed, so he can go back to his high school, so he can go back to where he's from and be like, and Nipsey Hussle did it, man. It sucks to see that he got taken away so young. And so early in his life after he was trying to help his community out. And it's the same reason why I want to see everybody succeed in the NBA, to help out their community, because they were once one of those kids, whether they were on the lunch program where they got really crappy milk, they got crappy food that, that no one really should be eating, but to go back there and to give some of those kids opportunities to maybe code or to maybe do some things that, besides basketball. It doesn't have to be necessarily sports you go back to and help the community out with. It can be coding. It can be, maybe YouTube even, or kind of TikTok, or kind of in the arts, or really in the science department. It doesn't matter what department it is, but to go back and to give them opportunities in situations where they can really look at it and say like, damn, I really made a difference in my community. And that's kind of what I want to see from Sharif Cooper. And I'm hoping that we can at this point. So we'll see what happens here. I like I said, I want to see it. I want to see them succeed, man. It would make communities in situations where they can really look at it and say like, damn, I really made a difference in my community. And that's kind of what I want to see from Sharif Cooper. And I'm hoping that we can at this point. So we'll give me 1 second. I like I said, I want to see it. I want to make sure that we're looking good on the live stream. And so we'll see, what happens. I think that there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about in this sort of situation. Let me just double check. And like I said, we'll see what happens in that sort of situation with them. And again, my biggest takeaway is just, make sure that whatever it is that you do, to make sure to always go back and to help out your community any way possible. And to, give the kids that don't have that sort of type of resource that you just got, whether you're a millionaire, a billionaire, or whether you're someone that's just working your butt off. It doesn't have to be money, man. It can be time, it can be effort, and to just kind of help the next community or the next generation, I would say, kind of live up to the full potential that we know that these young kids can do. I know that, me, I'm only 26, kind of talking old head for someone that's 26, but I really want to see some great community, man. I kind of realized this kind of growing up. It's like, if you can really get a tight-knit community, or a community that really messes with you, and wants to see the other kids succeed, and to kind of build a place where the next generation of kids, not even talking about, and passing on game to those kids so they can pass the game on to someone else. Like, that to me is kind of the biggest thing. The biggest takeaway I want to see from everybody is to really do that for each other. But again, we'll see what happens in the near future with that. So I'm hoping that Sharif Cooper, my biggest loser in terms of where he got drafted, he was supposed to be a top 17 pick, ended up falling all the way in the second round to the 18th pick. But again, he's in a great situation in Atlanta, learning under Trae Young. I'm hoping that Trae Young can take him under his wing and help him out and make sure that he's in the best situation possible, so that way he can stay in the league for a very long time. I think for Kevin Porter Jr. is the next in line to revive his community a federal way. I hope so, man. I think Kevin Porter Jr. is a very talented player, man. I think he's going to be a great player in this league. You kind of saw the spurts of it. And I'm hoping that he can get an opportunity on this Houston Rockets team with so many new players coming in, to kind of be a part of that Houston rebuild and to kind of become the next person there. But before we get going and kind of talk about stuff, we got, a lot of teams trying to look to get a lot of people trying to get John Collins. Obviously, we had the Russell Westbrook trade. Me and my boy Pete and Tyrese talked about it. I kind of like that trade for them. Gets another superstar player to kind of give Anthony Davis a break, to give LeBron James a break, but to another guy that can really hustle and kind of get you those rebounds and those buckets. Like I said, we saw the way the Milwaukee Bucks won their championship series, even the Lakers to an extent. Getting offensive rebounds, getting more shots than your opponent by having more possession of the ball, having less possession for your opponent, who's a three-point shooting team, it definitely bodes well, and you can kind of see the reason why the Milwaukee Bucks won their championship. And I hope that a lot of people can kind of see that, and you don't have to necessarily go all in on the three. I know that you do need some three-point shooting, but I think the offensive rebounding is going to be more beneficial, and I think Russell Westbrook does a great job of that for the team. Like I said, we'll see what happens, man. It's going to be a very fun situation to kind of look at and see what they are able to do in that aspect for it. And really, I want to talk more so about Tristan Thompson and, of course, Josh Richardson. It looks like we're getting those two players, or we're trading away Tristan Thompson for Chris Dunn. It looks like it's a three-way trade between Tristan Thompson, DeLon Wright, and Chris Dunn. So we're going to get Chris Dunn. The Hawks are going to get DeLon Wright, who I know that my friend Josh is not a big fan of, but I think he will be a good player for you guys. I think someone that really could do some damage for you guys. I know that he's not necessarily everyone's cup of tea, but he was really good when he was a Raptor, as kind of in that backup role, NBA champion, I believe. So I think that he did a really good job in Dallas as well. I think he's going to be a great backup point guard. You do need it because I don't think you're going to sign Lou Williams, and I think that you could definitely use him to also help out Sharif Cooper as well, and to kind of be that next sort of mentor for him. And another guy, of course, that we got is Josh Richardson. You know, I think we used the remaining of our the trade will be finalized on Saturday as Richard's salary jumps when the league rules over, and the TPE will no longer be sufficient to accommodate the contract. I think this one's okay. I'm not a big fan of it. I think that we could have done a much better job with the rest of that trade exception. Could we have gotten a much better player? Probably. Could we have, maybe used it to get Evan Fournier to re-sign? Maybe. But I think that it looks like we're probably not going to re-sign Evan Fournier. We're just going to kind of deal with Josh Richardson and kind of have him be our guy. But again, I'm not too much of a fan of what's going on in Boston right now. We got rid of Tristan Thompson, which I like. It gets rid of that Kardashian stuff, gets rid of all the baby mama drama that's going on with him and his family, and really kind of focuses on, getting Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to really focus and to get them going. And really, maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later, maybe with Tyrese when he's on and available to talk more Boston Celtics. But I thought Boston didn't really do their job this, I would say, this offseason, an NBA draft. Obviously, they traded away their picks, so I'm hoping we can kind of see a revitalization of the Boston Celtics at some point, because it's not looking too hot right now. Oh, Target Nation, I didn't know you were a Celtics fan as well. Celtics got the most mid players ever in Fournier, Smart, and Richardson. We're the new Indiana Pacers stuck in the 8th seed. Right? No, I don't think we'll be stuck in the 8th seed. I think we'll be like 6th. Obviously, not much better. But I think that the thing with the Celtics that you have to realize is that we gotta see what Udoka is able to do. And we still have free agency, man. Like, we still got a lot of free agents to kind of pick up, see what we can do there. I don't think we have a lot of cap room, which sucks. If I have to look at the cap room. I believe we have some exceptions. It looks like our cap holding is 33 mil, and I think that's enough to get another player. I would love to get rid of a guy in Al Horford. And just to kind of see if we can get, honestly, Lonzo Ball. I know a lot of people are big fans of him. I know people are not the biggest, I would say, they're not the biggest fan. Looks like we're also getting Bruno Fernando as well. I kind of like that pickup for us. I like Bruno Fernando. I thought he could have developed really well under the Atlanta Hawks, so I'm not sure why they want to get rid of him like that. I honestly would have not done it. But, we'll see what happens there. Again, my biggest takeaway from the Boston Celtics, if we can get Lonzo Ball, I think he does help us a lot. Obviously, we're not keeping Jabari Parker. His contract is done. I think actually maybe we might be this one, or is it next season? No, 2021. Yes, sir. Lonzo to the Celtics and Marcus vanquished to the Magic is my pipeline dream. I think Lonzo could be a great fit, and I think if as a guy that's not going to take the shots away from Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, who we know that those guys are going to want to take those shots. They're not going to be guys that are going to do it. I strongly dislike Marcus Smart and what he brings to our team. I think he's a good player. I just think the problem with Marcus Smart is that I think the problem with him, Target Hill Nation, is that he disappoints me in the fact that I think he takes some shots that I think that he really shouldn't be taking. Not saying that you have to know your role, but he just takes some very contested jumpers or really like early 3-point jumpers, and it just kind of frustrates me because I feel like there has to be some sort of movement and momentum before you take the shot. Like I said, we'll see what Udoka's kind of offense and what his personnel and what he likes to do. But again, I am not the biggest fan of a Marcus Smart kind of saying where we're at right now. Is Lonzo a legit possibility going to the Celtics or something you want? I mean, according to the real GM, he's kind of a player that a lot of people I would say we're kind of linked to him right now. If I can find the story. Let's see if I can find the story. It was here somewhere. So this is kind of it. Lonzo Ball is to be a restricted free agent with New Orleans. Ball will receive interest from Chicago, Boston, Toronto Raptors, and Indiana Pacers. I want him. I think he could be a great fit for our team. I know me and my sister, we kind of have back and forth arguments. She's also a Boston Celtics fan. She doesn't really see him as a leader, and that's kind of the reason why she doesn't want Lonzo Ball. But I think he could be a great player for us, man. I didn't realize you were the one who texted me that. I think he could be a great player for us. But again, me and my sister talked about it. We go back and forth on it. I think he can be. So restricted free agent means that the team has the ability to match that offer. So, for example, if Lonzo Ball, let's say the Celtics do try to get Lonzo Ball, it means that the New Orleans Pelicans have a chance to match the offer and then some for it. Yo, sorry for the random comment, but crazy day for MLB trades. The core for my Cubbies is finally broken up. Hey, man, I think you got to enjoy your championship that you got a couple years back, man. I think that, to me, was worth trading all those assets that you trading those assets that you had and kind of restarting. I mean, it didn't look like that the Cubbies were going to be a team that could contend for a championship this year. And it feels like the teams get richer. Like the rich teams get richer. The Dodgers, the Giants. I thought they also had some great stuff. Especially, I feel like the Padres, man. I felt like they were looking at Schwarzer, I think, before he went to the Dodgers, and then they were able to kind of finesse that deal, which is crazy to me because I would assume that everyone would want the Dodgers to lose just because they're the top dogs. And they would kind of want this Padres team to kind of be the next team up, but we'll see. But we'll see what happens as we kind of continue talking more so basketball. But yeah, that's the restricted free agent. It means that the team that originally has him is able to offer up a contract, and then some. And really, I don't really think that there's other much news. It looks like Bradley Beal has no issues with the Wizards trading away Russell Westbrook. I think it's better for the Wizards. I honestly think that when I look at the Wizards, they actually did a pretty good job. I'm watching Rui Hachimura in the Olympics right now, and you're seeing a different Rui than I think we've ever seen before. I can dig Alonzo running point for the Bulls. Nah, man, he's gonna come. He's gonna come to Boston, unless the Lakers are able to convince him to sign to the Lakers, which I doubt. I don't think he's gonna go there. I think he wants his money. But again, I really think that you could definitely see him. I mean, the problem is that I feel like Chicago just keeps messing up these trades and just really keeps messing up their ability to get some of these players. I thought that they could have used some of the guys that are in this draft. I mean, if we kind of look again, where you guys would have picked at 8. Whoops, I want to look at the first round again. I thought that you guys could have gotten a guy like Zaire Williamson, even get a guy like Davion Mitchell, who I think would have been a great fit for your team. I don't think he would have been a reach at this point. Or even Franz Wagner, to kind of maybe you can get rid of Lauri Markkanen, let him go. Again, there was a lot of moves I thought that they could have done. And again, the Chicago Bulls seem to kind of hedge their bets on these trades. We'll see who they get in free agency. Will Alonzo want to be a Chicago Bull? We'll find out in this coming off season in terms of the free agency period. It's going to start next week. We're going to find out what teams need, what they want to do. But again, I thought that the Wizards did a great job. They got Corey Kispert, kind of a local alum here in Seattle, more so up north, kind of near that Shorewood area, or Shoreline area, I should say. Sorry, not Shorewood, Shoreline. Playing at Kings, I thought, looking at a guy that could potentially be, a special shooter in this league, with the way that he can play the game, I definitely appreciate his tenacity and the way that he's able to go out there and shoot the rock. And like I said, with Rui, you're looking at a guy that can develop and be a special player. Why not pick him up? Why not try and trade Russell Westbrook as well? I think it's a win-win for both teams, to be honest with you. The Wizards really need to start developing some of these young players that they started drafting and not stay with these old guys. And it gives the Lakers another superstar to help LeBron James win a championship. And I got to say that the Lakers, to me, are my favorites to win the championship at this point. I know that that's kind of blasphemy, and a lot of people pick the Nets at this point, but I just think the Lakers did a great job in picking up Westbrook. I know a lot of people are going to say you're just a LeBron stan, but I really think that they did a good job in this draft. Really in this draft, because they traded away the pick to get Russell Westbrook. And again, not really much to talk about. We did talk about our biggest winners and losers earlier in this live stream. Didn't feel like we went an hour, but we did go an hour almost. And I want to appreciate everybody that did tune into the stream today and yesterday. Tar Heel Nation, Justin, my girlfriend. I appreciate you guys tuning into the live stream today. I know it's Friday. You could be doing anything else in the world right now. But I do appreciate you guys tuning in, man. It's one of those things that you look at it, and I just want to make sure that I really thank a lot of you guys that tuned in yesterday, man. It really made it a lot of fun. Am I able to do a 7-hour stream? That is tough. I'm not gonna lie to you. That's a tough ask. I definitely think that I can do some live streams at kind of big events. The Olympics are going on right now. Maybe what I can do is I can eat some food really quick, and then maybe we can start watching it. But I think for the most part, I think we're gonna probably end this live stream today. And maybe tomorrow we'll go again to talk some other stuff, kind of see like what I like, kind of look at the teams and kind of doing that stuff. I think Slovenia and France will take the gold medal in basketball, and Olympia, Australia, in my opinion, will be third. I think France has a great chance of doing it. I think France, to me, is a more complete team than Slovenia. I know that they have Luka Doncic. You could say a lot about him. But like I said, I think my biggest thing with France is that they're a team. All of them are together. All of them can do a lot of different things. You got Evan Fournier. You got Rudy Gobert. You got Yabusele, who's playing really well in France. Apparently not playing well for the Celtics to stay on their team. And I just think you look at it and you could see a potential special team in France. You got Nicolas Batum, the captain, as well. And it kind of goes to show you that France is really starting to step up and be a powerhouse. A lot of people picked Spain as kind of like the second team, but you really have to start looking at France, who is doing a great job of getting the players that they need in order to get to where they're at right now. And I think that is the next game, if I'm not mistaken. I think France is playing next. I'm not mistaken. I predict LeBron tears his Achilles ACL this year. He's too old. Nah, man, you can't be wishing that upon people, man. I'm going to have to call you out on that. You can't be wishing torn ACLs and injuries like that. You could say that, he's not going to be the same player as he once was, but I don't know, man. I think that you're looking at it. I think you're looking at a good player, man. I think LeBron James is still one of the best in the league. Until he is completely fallen off and he's averaging less than 20 points per game, less than 4 assists and maybe less than 6 rebounds, then we could start talking about maybe LeBron James is not still one of the top players in the league. But we'll see what happens, man. I'm not, like I said, I think that he's going to do a really good job this year. You get Westbrook. I think it's a great pickup. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, he can't shoot. That's kind of it. But we'll see what happens. And there's something I was going to check. Oh. Before we kind of sign out here, I just kind of want to see what it's Italy and Nigeria. That's who's playing right now. Who played today? I thought. No, they play tomorrow. Maybe this one. Today. So France won 79-62 against Iran, which is actually kind of crazy that Iran was able to kind of keep up with France. And we'll see. Too many minutes overall career. Nah, like I think he's still he's in order to do that, you have to take care of your body. I think he does a great job of taking care of his body. I know he's not like the young spring chicken that he once was, and I'll give you that one, Tar Heel Nation. But again, I think that he'll do a tremendous job for the NBA and kind of get the Lakers back on track, which is where I think they will be next year. And in my opinion, they'll be in the NBA Finals. But before we go, guys, again, I want to say that we have a donation link, and we also have merch if you are interested in buying some of this merch. Like I said, we got T-shirts, we got mugs, we got a lot of stuff if you are interested in buying some of the stuff or even supporting the channel in any way. My biggest thing right here is going to be the subscriber goal. That's going to be my biggest thing. Make it a little bit bigger so you guys can kind of see that. I want to make sure that we're able to get to this subscriber goal, man. I think we can do it, and with your guys' help, I think that'll be something that we can achieve. But anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Thank you once again for joining me here on The Charge, giving you the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. I do appreciate every one of you that did tune in today. It is my, I'm very grateful and very blessed to have you guys in here kind of talking some basketball. And as we kind of end the stream, I hope you guys do enjoy the rest of your night. And tomorrow, Saturday, hopefully you guys are enjoying your Saturday as well, wherever you're at in the world. Anyway, guys, like I said, my name is Bernie. Thank you once again for joining me here on The Charge, giving the latest NBA news and rumors and also basketball opinions. Like I said, leave a comment section down below. What do you guys make of this draft? Who's your biggest winner? Who's your biggest loser? And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.